morning. It is Wednesday, June 10th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu closes the Herzliya Conference yesterday in a speech, claiming he's committed to the two-state solution, but putting the blame on the negotiating failure yet again on the Palestinians and their boycott efforts in the international arena. A UN report on Eritrean war crimes raises a debate over the status of asylum seekers in Israel. And later on the show, with only 2 more days to the Tel Aviv Pride Parade 2015, we will take a closer look at the preparations. Yes, indeed, we shall be there. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and yesterday saw the culmination of the IDC Herzliya Annual Policy Conference, so we begin straight here in Israel. The conference ending with a lengthy speech by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in which he laid out his thoughts on the peace process with the Palestinians, Iran, and the challenges and opportunities presented by a rapidly changing Middle East. Netanyahu made it a point to state his commitment, or rather willingness, to accept a two-state solution, but placed the blame, as expected, on the Palestinians, saying his readiness to negotiate has been met by impossible preconditions and an international concerted effort to sanction and boycott Israel. Though he never referred to the BDS movement by its initial name signature, the Israeli Prime Minister reiterated the boycott and Israeli sanction efforts as a direct fault of the Palestinian Authority. Touching on economy, Iran, and the importance of strengthening Israel's security via prosperity, that's where his speech was connected on. But it is clear Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to touch on the sore issue of the BDS movement, as well as European threats to take the sanctions effort a step further, a threat which is compounded by the continuous hinting of President Obama that the United States will find it hard to defend Israel in the international arena, ergo in UN resolution councils, for example, in the near future. I am joined in studio by I-24 News correspondent, contributor, usually in London, but today here with us, Jonathan Sachadati. Good morning to you. Via Skype by Senior Coordinator for the Diaspora Affairs Ministry for Strategic Affairs, Asher Friedman. Mr. Friedman, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And via phone by Marion Cadlier from the Globalization and Human Rights Desk at the FIDH. Good morning to you, Marion. Not yet. She will be with us shortly. But before we start, let's take a look at the Israeli Prime Minister's speech last night, some of the highlights specifically detailing sanctions and their danger. Let's have a listen.
So I again call on President Abbas to return to negotiations without preconditions. But I also know he has very little reason to talk. Why should he talk? He can get by without talking. He can get by with an international community that blames Israel for not having talks. In other words, the Palestinians run from the table. They ran away from Prime Minister Barak. They ran away from Prime Minister Olmert. They ran away from, before that, from Prime Minister Sharon. And they ran away from me. Asher in Jerusalem, I would like to start with you. Good morning to you. And I think you will most likely chime in on the Prime Minister's warning of the dangers of boycotts of Israel. But it is interesting to see that he has, to me it was interesting to see that he never really mentioned BDS by name, sort of lumping together anybody who's trying the effort of, be it sanctioning or boycotting certain things or even products coming out of Israel. Do you think that would be effective as the speech of the Prime Minister? And what is the problem with groups who are not the BDS trying what others may describe as, you know, non-violent methods of trying to push Israel towards a different route?
I think the point that the Prime Minister was trying to make was that BDS is among several steps that the Palestinians and others are taking in order to avoid negotiations, in order to avoid those steps that will bring us to the outcome that we want, which is a two-state for two-people solution. So the BDS, applications to the ICC and other such steps are simply unhelpful and will not move us down the road towards achieving that two-state solution.
Asher, you're staying with us. Jonathan, I'm sure that you will agree in many ways, but there is a push right now in Europe, for example, okay, to label settlement products in supermarkets, in them, labels products coming out of the settlements, as, a warning, these have been created in, illegal territories, which internationally, they're illegal. They're considered illegal. What would be the problem with that?
Well, it seems, I think, that what Netanyahu was talking about yesterday in Herzliya and what has been hitting the news here in Israel over the last week or two has been this analysis of BDS, of boycott, divestment and sanctions, which seems to miss the mark somewhat in terms of what they're actually dealing with. Is it labeling that you're talking about? Is it a group of thugs outside a theatre putting on an Israeli play? Is it people outside a shop selling Israeli products? Is it a university boycotting Israeli academics? Or is it, in fact, all of these? And I think that the underlying message here is that this boycott movement is, in fact, almost like the Esperanto of Israel haters. It's the common language they all speak, and whichever part of that you want to engage in, you can. And so I think the issue that Israel is struggling to deal with now, perhaps too late, some argue, is how to deal with something which spans from a group of crazies outside a shop selling Dead Sea products all the way through to a university boycott.
It's not just a group of crazies. There are various, when you look at people like, at student academics, okay, you can see what's happening in campuses. But the push, for example, okay, on boycotting certain companies that deal with the settlements, it's modus operandi that has been used in the past in other countries that actually resolved conflicts.
The effect, of course, of a boycott is to impose some sort of economic pressure, some sort of pressure culturally, and these sorts of things. But in that sense, the BDS movement's been something of a failure because, trade with Israel has increased with countries like my own in Great Britain. We heard Sajid Javid, the business secretary in the UK, give a speech just a couple of days ago in which he outlined all the many ways in which Israel and the United Kingdom have strengthened their ties. For example, the total value of trade and services between the two countries, he said, is now over £4.5 billion a year. Last year alone, 25 Israeli companies set up and expanded their operations in the UK. Small number, but for a small country, this is a big deal. Over 300 Israeli companies with a physical presence there in Great Britain. The problem is that there's a gap between what governments are doing, because they know that in terms of intelligence, in terms of business, in terms of science, in terms of technology, not have to, they want to. Israel is a country that for them shares an ideological outlook and shares an economy which is burgeoning, which is strengthening, and they want a part of that, understandably.
But that said, and I'm going to introduce actually somebody else, also Jonah, heads up. I'm going to introduce Jonah, Jeremy, and Jonah Bob of the Jerusalem Post, because you're the legal affair correspondent, and Asher is still with us. Asher, I'm going to start with you, but I wanted people to see Jonah. Isn't there, and I'm asking the same question, isn't there a danger, Asher, that when, essentially the Prime Minister of Israel stands on a stage and doesn't say the word BDS, but, looks at the boycotting, whatnot, as a greater phenomenon, that groups like Breaking the Silence, which also people who are against boycotting Israel are trying to also destabilize, I'm using that word, Breaking the Silence, which is a group that is full of Israeli soldiers who fight in the, in Israel's wars, but have issues with certain things that Israel does. Isn't there a danger that if Israel goes head-to-head with the overlining idea of boycotting or, distancing yourself with certain actions of Israel, that it also destabilizes democracy? Dare I say that even?
Yael, I would have to disagree. Without relating to any specific organization, there is a clear difference between legitimate criticism and between boycotting and divesting Israel. To single Israel out for boycotts, divestments, and sanctions is something that we consider both unjust, illegitimate, and entirely unhelpful for moving the ball down the road. And therefore, that we oppose, although we certainly welcome criticism of Israel's policies as part of Israel's democracy.
Well, Jonah Bob, the legal affair correspondent of the Jerusalem Post, I'm going to actually pose the same thing to you, because there are people who will say, such as, and sadly she's not with us on the phone, the FIDH, they're a group, okay, campaigning to end their, to campaign, calling for companies to put an end to their economic ties with the settlements. They are distancing themselves from the BDS campaign directly. Groups as such, illegitimate, isn't that something that can be considered a legitimate, battle to change some type of policy, as opposed to just lumping everybody together as the BDS?
Look, there's so many diplomatic ways that you can do things without punishing a country economically, singling out Israel as opposed to so many of the other countries in the Middle East that are having serious human rights problems where they're butchering their own people. The issue is singling out Israel, punishing it economically. And there's a big debate. Who's more responsible right now for the breakdown in the peace process?
Yeah, that's a debate for 20 years. You know, that's basically the blame game.
I know, but to blame it on Israel as opposed to the Palestinians and to punish Israel economically, and as you know, you were saying, there is this mix between the 1948 BDSers and the 1967 BDSers. The BDSers who don't want a two-state solution, they want one state, a Palestine. And it would be nice if you could separate them, but they don't want to be separated.
But on that flip side, and I'm giving you guys, I'm sorry, the contra, because some would argue that it is the government of Israel or even its prime minister who, before the elections, says that he does, a Palestinian state will not happen throughout his leadership. Okay, sidetrack to the side. Yes, BDS is not calling for a two-state solution.
But you can't blame the Prime Minister of Israel for stating something that he sees as a fact and which many, many people would agree with. If you can show me how in the next, let's say 4 years, optimistically, there is going to be a Palestinian state, then perhaps you can criticize him for saying that. But in actual fact, what he's pointing out, again in his speech last night, is he says, despite what he said in the run-up to the election, he says he reiterates his commitment to a two-state solution according to the Bar Ilan speech he gave, that historic speech where he said a demilitarized Palestinian state would be something that he is aiming towards if it also recognizes a Jewish national homeland in the state of Israel, which seems perfectly reasonable, I think, to most Israelis, that should be the case. That, if there's going to be a second state alongside Israel for Palestinians, it needs to not have the military capability to attack Israel, as, for example, the Palestinian sub-state in the Gaza Strip does. And if he is simply stating that that's not happening, how can the man be faulted for that?
I have to state arguments contra to that, because if I were Palestinian and I would be sitting here, I would counteract by saying, and they still go through checkpoints and state they still do not have a state, and and they are second.
Because many of them have still put on suicide belts before those checkpoints and tried to blow things up in hospitals and pregnant women. Some of them don't. But unfortunately, you have to work along the lines of the security needs. That's why he says he's very specific about his commitment to two states, whether we believe him or not. He says demilitarized, has to accept an Israeli state. Those things are the sort of basis for the Israeli position of almost any Israeli prime minister, basically since the year X. And in fact, if we look at those considerations, as long as there is no movement towards that, as long as there's been no acknowledgement of previous offers made towards the Palestinians moving towards that, as long as there is no negotiation, and this is where BDS comes in, as long as there's a situation where he's saying outside pressure, internationalizing this, making it a movement of vague people who want to boycott, doesn't push towards that.
Jonathan, I don't disagree with you. It is just the BDS, but to culminate this, and Jonah, this one is to you again. Isn't there a danger? And BDS, again, should be counteracted by Israel in some way, shape, or form. But we have heard over the course of the last several 2 weeks, when this has become a huge issue in the Middle East, and specifically in Israel, calls also to boycott other groups that have a legitimate right to criticize Israel from within Israel. And isn't that the danger, that red line will be crossed?
I think there are less painful alternatives, and I'm not going to advocate for any of these, but just to sort of give a spectrum of what else could be happening besides BDS. The Israeli government could put out a new peace plan if we wanted to be proactive. There are people who have been recommending that. But on the other side, the Europeans or the United States or the Quartet could put out a new peace plan. The Israeli government doesn't want that right now. We don't want it imposed from above, but it would be less painful than just trying to economically punish. The Palestinians could put out their own peace plan. That's never happened. We've put out maps. They haven't put out maps. There are a lot of other things that people haven't done yet, beyond going all the way to just boycotting and punishing Israel.
You're saying that there are more steps along the way. Again, I'm always for something that's not violent physically, but I stand here alone as a female. I want to thank you both for being here on this issue, and you're staying locked in the studio. With the United States and Israel ties already threatening to become a wedge issue in the upcoming presidential election in the United States, a recent Supreme Court decision dealing with the recognition of Jerusalem as the Israeli capital looks like it may take the partisan battle over the Jewish state to the next level. The court on Monday in the United States struck down a law that would let American citizens born in the city of Jerusalem have Israel listed in their passports as their country of birth. Just to remind you all that Jerusalem is not recognized as the capital of Israel around the world. Saying the legislation in the United States passed by Congress in 2002 encroached on the president's exclusive power to recognize foreign governments. Both Obama and his predecessor in office, George W. Bush, declined to enforce the law, not wishing to reverse a long-standing American policy of not recognizing Jerusalem as part of Israel. A year after the law was passed, an American couple filed a lawsuit demanding that the State Department uphold the law and list their newborn son's place of birth as Jerusalem, Israel, instead of the neutral Jerusalem alone on his passport. Years later, Menachem Zivotofsky, now age 12, was handed the disappointing decision. Though on the surface the case dealt with a technicality, it struck to the heart of separation of powers, ending in a 6-3 decision in the president's favor, with some legal experts in the United States saying it could impact future disputes between the White House and Congress on other foreign policy issues. Now, to help us make sense of the issue, we are still joined in studio by Jerusalem Post legal affairs correspondent Jonah Jeremy Bob. Good morning to you. Jonathan Sachadati is here because I just won't let him leave. Now, let's take a look at the following report and break it down from there.
Monday's 6-3 Supreme Court split ruling to strike down a law authorizing listing Israel on the passports of Jerusalem-born Americans is a victory for the Obama administration. The administration argued that the 2002 congressional law encroached on the president's power to set foreign policy and would undermine the U.S. government's claim to be a neutral peacemaker in the Middle East. The law was passed when George W. Bush was president, but neither his administration nor Obama's has ever enforced it. Seeking to remain neutral on the hotly contested issue of sovereignty over a city holy to Jews, Muslims, and Christians, the U.S. State Department allows passports to name Jerusalem as a place of birth, with no country name added. Menachem Benjamin Zivotofsky, the petitioner in the case, said in November 2014 that only listing Jerusalem as his birthplace with no country sends the wrong message.
I'm an Israeli, and I want people to know that I'm glad that I'm an Israeli and that I'm not embarrassed by the fact that I'm an Israeli.
In July 2013, an appeals court declared the 2002 law unconstitutional, taking the president's side. A second rejection of Zivotofsky's family appeal finally closed the case. The Obama administration had said a loss for the government would have been seen around the world as a reversal of U.S. policy that could cause, in quotes, irreversible damage to America's ability to influence the region's peace process.
We're joined from Washington, D.C. via Skype by Times of Israel political correspondent Rebecca Shimoni-Stroll. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And also joining us via phone is Menachem from Jerusalem, is Menachem Zivotofsky's father, Dr. Ari Zivotofsky. Dr. Zivotofsky, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Disappointed?
Quite disappointed.
Well, tell me how this came about, what were the efforts, and what is the family planning to do at this stage?
Well, it's been quite a long effort. We've been involved in this campaign, this struggle, this legal battle for 12 years. It really started soon after our son was born in Jerusalem, in Shari Tzedek Hospital, well within the so-called western half of Jerusalem. We were familiar with the U.S. policy of not allowing writing Israel on the passports, and we had been informed by the Lewins that Congress had only recently passed a law stating that if one wanted to write Israel, that the law now said you were allowed. And so my wife went to the embassy, applied for his passport, and of course on his passport it came back with just Jerusalem. And at the advice of the Lewins, we decided to test the law. And lawyers, Nat Lewin and Elisa Lewin, filed a lawsuit in district court in D.C. The lawsuit was thrown out for what they call lack of legal standing, and that began a long process through the U.S. courts, through the district courts, the Court of Appeals, and twice to the courts. Which
sadly for you was now lost. Dr. Zivotofsky, do stay with us on the phone. Rebecca, thank you for being with us this morning. This is a battle that the Zivotofskys could never would have won, isn't it? It's not something that an American president would change.
Well, it's certainly not a battle that the Zivotofskys could have won through arguing to the executive, but fortunately that is the purpose of the Supreme Court, right, is to offer a recourse to citizens in the face of disagreement with the federal government. And so I'm sure the Zivotofskys believed and that they could have won this case in appealing to the court. That said, it is true that the executive asked for an even broader definition of terms than they got. And so on a very, very, very narrow technicality, they didn't get 100% of the ruling that they wanted, but I'd say they got probably about 95.
About 95 of that. Jonah, you know, looking at that, though, and we still have everybody together, this is a battle, apropos our discussion beforehand, that became so much more than young Zivotofsky's wish to, you know, to have Jerusalem, Israel. This is something that in the United States, you know, and around the world still not recognized. I mean, let's say this would have passed. You know, it's like a mini intifada in some ways, no?
Look, first of all, my heart goes out to the Zivotofsky family. This has got to be a long, hard battle for them. In terms of a mini intifada, that's what the U.S. government was saying, and not just in the Palestinian areas, but all over the Middle East, maybe even in some North African countries. And I think it is hitting in Israel hard, also because it's with all of this BDS stuff that's going on at the same time. But we have to understand that it isn't related. This has been going on for a long time, and usually the U.S. Supreme Court does defer to the president on foreign policy issues. The one other element that I think is hard for people in Israel is I think the Israeli government under Netanyahu has been trying to say, we want at least recognition for those parts of Jerusalem and the West Bank that even under the Clinton parameters are going to be part of Israel. The baby was born in West Jerusalem, and this sort of takes that away on a sort of diplomatic and propaganda level to some extent.
Maybe propaganda level, but again, I'm going to play. Hold on, Jonathan, yes.
Well, and there's another interesting point about that. If we sidestep this passport case for a moment, which is important as it is, it's very interesting always to note, I can say again for Great Britain, that the consulate that they have in this region for Palestinian people is in Jerusalem, but their embassy for Israelis is in Tel Aviv. And what this shows in terms of confidence building, we often hear about confidence building steps for both sides in order to bring them to the table and make peace. And yet, all the confidence building is on one side. There is no acknowledgement in locating these sorts of things in Tel Aviv that any of Jerusalem will ever be Israeli. And when it's a commonly accepted thing that in any agreement, parts of Jerusalem will be Israeli, you have to ask yourself why constantly these little gestures are given on one side and never on the other side.
Again, valid points, but all still with us. And Dr. Zivotofsky, I'm going to have to play devil's advocate here in many ways, because we're everybody in this discussion is Jewish or Israeli or whatnot. That said, let's say I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm sorry you lost your battle. But do you understand that for, a decision that ultimately, and I'm simplifying this right now, comes, would lead to some form of a recognition of the leader of the free world that's been trying to be involved in the peace process here, recognizing Jerusalem as the one and only capital of Israel, which possibly it will be recognized like that internationally, but right now with everything that's going on in the Middle East, that country, the United States, cannot do that. Do you understand?
No, I have to say, because two things. One is that you mentioned the word capital. We never discussed the issue of capital. Our lawsuit was simply recognizing that a kid born in Shari Tzedek Hospital was born in Israel. Or not even recognizing, simply allowing us to write that that's how we view it. In other words, an Arab born in Haifa could request that his American passport not record that he was born in Israel, because he finds that offensive. He could just Haifa. So we were simply requesting that because we feel that Shari Tzedek is in Israel, and Israel is a legitimate country, and there are reasons to say that Shari Tzedek is in Israel, that's what the passport should reflect. We weren't asking them to recognize it as the capital. We weren't asking them to recognize even the state explicitly that they recognize it as part of Israel. This was a really very narrow request.
No, I understand.
Based on a narrow law that Congress had passed.
I know, Dr. Zivotofsky, I understand that, and I see your point, and it's valid, and it's true. But in the greater scheme of things, and Jonah, I will let you talk, in the greater scheme of things, and sadly, I think we people who live in the Middle East who are so connected to it emotionally cannot see past the implication of what it may mean if it is passed. Jonah, you wanted to say.
Yeah, I want to be fair to the Obama administration. In the West Bank and Gaza, you can't put a country on your passport either. And the other point is that, look, in terms of the context here, the 2002 law was part of a 1995 law push to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The Zivotofsky family might only have been concerned about their child, but I think there was a valid argument from the Obama administration that this was not just about putting the name, Israel on the passport. There was a bigger context to it. And if we're being fair and moving out of our own context, they do have an argument.
No, there's an argument for that. Rebecca Shimoni-Stroh is still with us, because to be fair to the Obama administration, which, we have no problems, criticizing in the studio many times, had this been, granted to the Zivotofskys, in the situation that the Middle East is in right now, with things on the table and off the table, that's not something the American president can afford, even if it's a minute esoteric issue. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I think part of it comes down to a question of framing. The court, of course, didn't want to discuss the actual diplomatic implications one way or another, and that's why they framed it very tightly around concepts of executive power. Can the executive do this? And they specifically framed it, and this is important, within the executive power of recognition. That is to say, there's a larger question still out there from Zivotofsky of what are the limits of executive power in foreign policy. And again, the court didn't go as far as it could have gone in asserting executive power in all foreign policy. This is specifically, the court tried to make this very tightly wrapped around the question of recognition. Now, on the other hand, the Obama administration could have framed this in a very different context. I think part of the implications that this could be another intifada starter or something like that also have to do with the exigencies of making the argument about executive power. That is to say, what this actually amounts to is recognition of the 1948 boundaries. Since we're talking about Shaarei Tzedek, right? We're not talking about recognition of the 67 boundaries. The post-67 boundaries. But the administration chose to see this in a very different way, as making it a question about, of course, broader executive power, and then going back and arguing that this also has to do with broader questions of recognition, with broader questions of Mideast peace. There would have been a way to frame this otherwise so that this might not have been seen as such a big issue, but I don't think it was in the general interest of the executive, which generally tries to assert its power over foreign policy, to downplay the significance of this ruling.
Rebecca Shimoni-Storr, that made some sense to me. No, I'm kidding. That was very enlightening. Very enlightening in that respect. And Dr. Zivotofsky, I want to thank you. You know, I'm sorry for your loss, but you know, as we said, so many details and overlaying meanings to this very controversial case. Thank you for being with me this morning, Jonathan, as well. When you get back, United Nations inquiry reports gross human rights violations in Eritrea. We will take a closer look at actually the questions it raises in Israel about the status of the asylum seekers. Stay with us. First, as in every morning, the news. I-24 News Morning Edition on this, I forget the month.
June 10th.
It's June, okay. June 10th, 2015. By the way, I'll remind people again, it was this time a year ago that ISIS came into international recognition. It is their anniversary. Happy birthday, ISIS. And we're sitting in the Middle East. But Ami Kaufman is here. I have no idea where I reminded people of that, but yeah.
Well, actually, it's connected to some of the stuff I'm going to talk about, so maybe it's a good thing.
It's the Kinsey
You're reading me.
I'm reading you.
Like an open book.
Yes. Old people. Ami Kaufman with the news you missed while scanning the headlines.
So we're going to start with Syria and an item from Al Arabiya. It's kind of like a seesaw for Bashar al-Assad. One day it's up, one day it's down. Yesterday was one of those days where he just had kind of both going good and bad for him.
It is Wednesday. It's the worst day of the week, so you just reminded me of an Aretha Franklin song.
Which
love is like a seesaw. Okay.
Oh man, I don't know that one. I'm embarrassed.
Okay,
anyway, on to Syria and serious issues. So we're going to start in the south, where rebels say that they caught a major base close to the city of Deraa. It's called the Liwa 52 base.
Right.
So this is a big blow for Assad, closer to Damascus, of course. But the Daily Star, which is our next item, shows that in the Kalamoun region, in the northeast, on the border with northern Lebanon, ISIS tried to attack Hezbollah posts, and 22 people were killed in that fight. But apparently Hezbollah is saying that they fended off that attack and everything is okay. But you know, a real up and down kind of thing here, going every day.
No, for us, I think it's the battle for Syria, whatever is left of it, because it's I think fairly safe to say that there is no Syria left in many ways.
Oh yeah, totally. There's no Syria left.
Is that it's really edging up towards the make or break time for Assad and what will happen to his regime if he stays, or if it remains just Damascus.
But it seems like it's happening, like it's going to happen soon. That's what it's feeling like for most journalists.
And you know why?
about that.
No, seriously, it has to be somehow resolved here or there by the end of the month? Before June 30th.
Before Iran, yeah. Before the deal with Iran.
Yeah.
On to Israel and Hamas. Yesterday there were reports about the UN, which kept both Israel and Hamas off what they sort of a blacklist of states that violate children's rights during conflict. This is very interesting because there's a lot of pressure from various groups to keep both Israel and Hamas on the list.
That list.
There was even a person in the UN who recommended to keep them on the list. Her name is Leila Zerougi. But Ban decided, apparently, Haaretz reported that it was because of pressure from Washington and Tel Aviv and Jerusalem to exclude them. But he did wrap them at the end of the report, saying that the unprecedented and unacceptable scale of the impact on children in 2014 raises grave concerns about Israel's compliance with international humanitarian law. This is a report from the IBT, the International Business Times, which keeps it kind of neutral, but let's compare it to how other people are kind of looking at it. And let's take a look at the very, very conservative, the Jewish press. Let's take a look at their headline. The one is very kind of geared toward the Orthodox community in the States. Let's look at this headline. UN equates Israel with Hamas. Both off UN the blacklist. I mean, how dare they? How dare the UN equate Israel
and keep them off the list?
And keep them off the list. And here, let's look at some of the wording inside the report.
Please.
The UN left both Israel and then they say the sole democracy in the Middle East. They had to really point that out. And the terrorist group off its blacklist of those who violate children's rights during conflicts. Hannah said that Israel was subjected to sharp criticism by Zerougi for the impact on children. That's how they call it, the impact on children. No numbers. There were, of course, over 560 children killed in that conflict in 2014. That's what the Jewish press calls the impact. And let's take a look. On the other hand, a Turkish newspaper, the Daily Sabah, which is a pro-Erdogan newspaper, and, of course, quite anti-Israel. Wow. Let's look at this headline.
We have numbers.
Killing more than 500 children, apparently not enough to land Israel on UN's child rights blacklist.
Not only that, I mean, look at that picture.
Look at the picture, but look, I mean, the snark in that headline is just screaming, isn't it?
It screams out. It screams out. Yep. Unbelievable. No, when you look at that, here's the defining moment of the diverging opinions.
Yeah.
To me, and I say this again, as a parent, I think both should be on the list. And I said that. You know, don't agree, disagree, do agree, but really, yeah.
Well, I think, personally, I do agree. But, I mean,
if one child is dead, I don't care. Put them on the list.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay, off to the States. This is a story that I really love. This is about the jailbreak that everybody is talking about.
It's the Shawshank Redemption of 2015.
Thank you for bringing that up. People are comparing it to the Shawshank Redemption, to the escape from Alcatraz. These are two convicted murderers who escaped from the Clinton Correctional Facility in northern New York. Investigators are now saying that they might have had some help from inside. Here's a Reuters report
of how they did it.
Yeah,
just to remind users of this show, yes, I mean, I agree, this was my favorite story of the week. Two inmates in New York basically dug their way. Look at this. This is a graphic of how they got out of one of the most highest. Not only that, though, they left a note.
They left they didn't leave a note. They left a smiley face.
A smiley face.
And said, "Have a nice day."
Have a nice day.
That's all they left.
And
they came out. They came out on the other side of the wall under a manhole. Through a manhole that they had to also use power tools to unlock and stuff like that.
And nowhere to be found.
Now, no, they're still looking them for after almost 5 days.
5 days.
Governor Andrew Cuomo gave a reward is giving a reward of $100,000, $50,000 for each person if people find them. Now, it's good that you mentioned the Shawshank. They're
coming out to a nice residential neighborhood in the United States.
You mentioned the Shawshank Redemption. Now, Conan O'Brien had on his show yesterday Tim Robbins, who was the star of Shawshank Redemption. Let's see what they had to say about that.
All the media is talking about how it's this Shawshank-like escape, and it's such an iconic movie. I'm wondering, do you get calls? Is the media calling you and saying, will you comment on the big escape in upstate New York?
Actually, those two guys called me about a month ago.
How do you do this?
That's classic. That's beautiful.
Called me 2 months ago. So we have this plan. But we're wondering.
Not exactly which manhole to look for. Could you help us out?
Apropos the Shawshank Redemption, they clearly didn't do it with a spoon.
No. But I think he went through the sewer as well, right? He went through the sewage.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole thing.
Not only that, is also not a smiley face, but kind of a baffanculo at the end, because it's all done behind the poster of a pinup.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to end with something from Malaysia. There was an earthquake in Malaysia a few days ago. It was quite deadly. It was about 5.9 magnitude, killed 16 people, the mountain of Kinabalu. But the Malaysian authorities are blaming tourists, Western tourists, who went up on the mountain 2 weeks before that and took their clothes off and took some pictures. And they're saying, because this is a sacred mountain, you made the gods angry, and that's why we're having an earthquake.
Oh, my word.
They're trying to apprehend these tourists that are now dispersed all over Malaysia and trying to.
I'm not laughing. I'm just thinking that may put me to blame for so many natural disasters,
so many earthquakes, so many
around the
floods,
world, in many, many ways. Wow.
Yeah.
Ami Kaufman, fabulous, fabulous stuff. You and the purplish bow tie are locked.
Yeah, I actually got mixed up today. I got mixed. It's in the right set.
That's in the right set.
Fashion police might be a little bit angry.
No, but it is a statement.
Does it work?
It is saying works. Okay. It works. I'm liking it this morning. Locked in studio with us as we move along to the other segment. So here we go. Still here in the studio, and hold on as I am looking for what I'm about to say. With me in studio is Asaf Weitzen. It's a man that I like to that I very much like to have in studio. Not just a friend, but also a very, very accomplished lawyer. And you're here. I'll tell you why. The latest UN Human Rights Council in its report on Eritrea recommended that countries with Eritrean migrants grant them asylum and warns against sending them back to danger in a country that punishes anyone who tries to leave without permission. Israeli NGOs, both those in favor and those against granting asylum to the thousands of Eritrean who entered Israel in recent years, responded swiftly to the report. Pro-migrant NGOs called on the state to formally recognize Eritreans in Israel as a group which, under the current circumstances, must be granted asylum. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Center for Migrant Policy, which champions the rights of veteran Israelis living in slums currently inhabited by Eritrean and other migrant communities, said the report doesn't justify a generalized recommendation to treat all Eritreans as persecuted individuals. Now, to break this decision down, we are joined in studio by the Legal Department Director at the Hotline for Refugees and Migrants, Asaf Weitzen. Advocate Asaf Weitzen, good morning to you.
Morning.
Over the phone by Director of the PR at the Israeli Immigration Policy Center, Jonathan Yakubovich. Jonathan Yakubovich, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, and thank you for being with us this morning. The main points of this report, okay, are in front of us. I do believe they are in front of us, these main points. No, they are not. Okay, yes, they are. Here we go. Highlights of the UN inquiry report. Gross human rights violation. I'm just reading out of this report, okay? The government of Eritrea is responsible for the systematic, widespread, and gross human rights violation. Information gathered through the pervasive control system is used in absolute arbitrariness to keep the population in a state of permanent anxiety. Asaf Weitzen, I want to start with you. Eritrea, the situation, if we are looking at this UN report, okay? I'm assuming you will tell me that advocates like you feel that there is enough information to show that Eritreans who are seeking asylum in Israel, if they are sent back to the country of origin, what will they face?
So as the report says, they will face torture and detention and maybe even worse. By the way, this is something that the Israeli government, does not disagree with. Israel is not sending people to Eritrea, period. But what Israel is doing is rejecting asylum request of Eritrean, and in the rejection letter, they say specifically, due to the conditions and the situation in Eritrea, we will not send you to Eritrea. So if you admit that the situation in Eritrea is terrible, and if you admit that he will face extreme danger if sent there, why don't you recognize him as a refugee, or at least give him rights that will allow him to live as a human being here?
No, completely. And with us on the phone also is Tashuma from the Cholotem facility. Where Tashuma, are you with us?
Yes, yes.
Lovely to have you with us this morning. You're basically locked up, in not so many words, right? In the Cholotem facility that the Israeli government has set up for illegal immigrants, as they call them, asylum seekers or whichever. How long have you been there?
I have been here almost for 16 months now, like 15 months and 3 weeks.
16 months and 3 weeks. And where do you stand when it comes to your attempt to stay in the country and whatnot?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Where do you stand now in the battle, in the legal battle, in the attempt to stay here in Israel as an asylum seeker, as opposed to being sent back? Have you been told by the Israeli, you know, by representations or whatnot?
At the beginning, we entered Israel. What happened was I didn't think that we were considered like as infiltrators. If we were infiltrators, they shouldn't tell us like welcome to Israel. The army told us that you are welcome to Israel and you're safe. And then we came to just to the city. They put us in the city, and we managed to live like with the people. And when we had 6 years here, they put us here in this detention center, like scholar detention center, which is very hard to live. And now they are giving us a kind of a choice, a bad choice, both of them, to go to third country, which we don't know what's going to happen there, or to Saronim detention center. And we are still waiting. We can't go to third country to the country we don't know. We're just waiting to go to Saronim, I guess, if that's like the choice.
If that would be the choice. Jonathan Yakubowicz of the Policy Immigration Center with me on the phone. Is there an understanding at the center, you know, that a lot of the asylum seekers that are in the country of Israel not just will be facing death, persecution, you know, in Eritrea, but that they really have nowhere to go?
Yeah, so the report that we're talking about doesn't really bring any much new information that we don't know. Eritrea is definitely not a liberal democracy, and there are gross human rights violations in Eritrea. The question is, if every Eritrean that left Eritrea was in danger in Eritrea or will be in danger if he returns, the answer to that is no. We know for a fact that there are thousands of people in Israel who actually support their government. Just less than 2 weeks ago, the Eritrean embassy in Israel had a very large party where they celebrated their independence party, their independence day, with thousands of people, with the Eritrean ambassador in Israel. Are these people refugees? Most definitely not.
I'm sorry, Mr. Yakubowicz, I have to jump because they had a party in the embassy?
What?
Because they had a party in the embassy?
I'm saying people who go to celebrate their Independence Day in the Eritrean embassy with the Eritrean ambassador in Israel, those people cannot be seen as refugees. These are people who support their regime at home. We know that people go back to Eritrea. We know that people go back to Eritrea from all over Europe after getting asylum. So we know that the generalized recommendation of the report is that everyone comes from Eritrea.
Hold on, Mr. Weizen, how do you counteract the argument?
So I disagree, but to make it easier, so let's take the few hundreds that have been in this so-called party and put them aside. We have more than 30,000 Eritreans here asking asylum. 4 were recognized as refugees. 4. How can you explain this?
It's the lowest rate in the world, isn't it?
Yes,
of
sure. Now,
recognition.
The average recognition rate is around 80%. The Israeli Supreme Court said it specifically in his last constitutional decision. Some are getting kind of protection, some are recognized as full refugees.
Yeah.
In Israel, only 4 got this. 4 people.
Because usually they're just not processing the request to begin with. They're not.
So in the past, until 2012, they didn't process the request.
All right.
Now, at the last year and a half, they are processing it and rejecting them.
And that's sadly, you know, the numbers speak for themselves. And Mr. Yakubowicz on the phone with us. I want to thank you, Mr. Weizen, as well. It's sadly all the time we have because it's an issue that we can discuss forever. When we get back, something entirely different, but it's going to be colorful. So do stay with us. It is a Tel Aviv event. First, the news. Welcome back. It is still Wednesday, June 10th, 2015. This is still the morning edition on I-24 News. I am still Yael Levi. Last I checked, we are still broadcasting from Jaffa Port, part of Tel Aviv. Thank you for staying with us because we are going to tell you why you should be here. The Tel Aviv Pride Week runs this year from June 4th to June 14th with over 50 special events happening throughout this week. 100,000 people will be taking part in the annual Tel Aviv Gay Pride Parade. I'm going to say that number again, 100,000 people. Among them, estimated 30,000 tourists. The city of Tel Aviv will transform into a giant flamboyant street party on Friday, and it's a damn good party, serving as the highlights of the week of gay pride activities. Tel Aviv is renowned for its liberal atmosphere. Yes, I know you can find that one shocking. Its vibrant nightlife and its urban beaches. Actually, it's one of the best cities in the world. I can attest. I lived in most of them. All of which at Tel Aviv actually made Tel Aviv into one of the most popular gay-friendly destinations in the world. Yes, we are in the Middle East. We are joined in studio by Sharon Ehrlich, Europe Department Marketing Administration of the Ministry of Tourism in Israel. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning.
Great to have you with us. And also joined live from Rabin Square in Tel Aviv by I-24 News, Tal Heinrich, my favorite person to send out there. Tal, good morning to you. We're going to let you start off. First of all, you're standing in one of the busiest streets in Tel Aviv. I think probably flags will be all around you. But tell us where you're at and what is expected there.
Exactly, Yael. So I'm standing here next to the Tel Aviv Municipality building, which is, by the way, lit up in the gay rainbow colors flag during the night. And over here, you can see around the city many flags. And the atmosphere is just completely lovely. And as you said before, many special events and festivities are about to take place throughout this special Gay Pride Week. And today, for example, there's a big global conference which takes place with many educators and mayors and activists and journalists in order to build skills and network, but also to celebrate Israel's progress in this realm. And you know, Yael, that unlike places like Luxembourg and maybe Ireland, where we've seen the latest legislation where same-sex marriage are recognized, here in Israel, gay couples need to go abroad in order to get married. But once they return, exactly, the state recognizes their new status as a married couple. More so, the state of Israel does recognize and give full rights and citizenship to gay babies who were gay couples' babies who were born through surrogacy. So, and in this realm also, a certain survey conducted by Maariv newspaper found that 82% of the Israeli public is supportive of gay rights to have children.
And I want to tell you, Tal,
I want to introduce you my guest here. Yes, Yael?
No, I thought we were losing you technically for a second.
Ethan Schwartz.
Okay, sadly, we've lost Tal Heinrich, but she will be back, and we are with Sharon in studio. Okay. Then hopefully we'll have Tal Heinrich back, because Tel Aviv, the Gay Pride Parade in Tel Aviv is world-renowned and has become, actually, everybody I know in Europe knows about it. Am I correct in saying that, Army? Exactly. But it's not the only thing that Israel is renowned for when it comes to tourism, because you are of the tourism ministry. It's actually four things, right? It's what attracts tourists to Israel? Pilgrimage, right?
Yeah, I think the main thing that everyone knows about is the pilgrimage. But we have also niche tourism, like the gay one, and nature, the birds, food, culinary tourism. We have wonderful festivals like the Opera Festival that is happening right now in Masada, later on in Jerusalem. So tourists have many, many reasons to come to Israel.
No, one would say that. Many of them are shying away. Has it been hard over the course of the last several years to attract tourists to Israel?
Well, it's been up and down, and the past year we've making efforts to bring back the tourists after Tzuk Eitan.
That's Operation Protective Edge, the war of last summer. Yeah.
But we have several of offices around the world, in Asia, in America, and in Europe, and our representative over there working very hard to actually market Israel. This is the product, Israel. We have PR companies, local PR companies that are working with our offices in this purpose to bring Israel over there. And, yeah.
And when you say market Israel, what is the strategy usually of marketing Israel?
We use campaign over the internet or billboards around Europe and America. We use PR events. We use also the technique of bringing journalists over to Israel. This is, I think, the best strategy, because we bring more than 3,000 journalists a year over here in different delegations. And this week we have the wonderful 45 journalists, big delegations from all over America and Europe that came to Tel Aviv to celebrate with us this wonderful, wonderful week.
No, I mean, it's a wonderful week, and I think Ami will agree with me. There is some type of an anomaly here in Israel, where, you know, and especially with the recent elections and very an orthodox, by that I don't mean religious, but orthodox way of thinking that people will see with the rest of the country. Yet Tel Aviv, in many ways, is like this, you know, it's this liberal.
It's bubble.
It's a bubble.
It kind of gives, sometimes it gives a little false misrepresentation of what Israel is really about. I mean, I don't know if the rest of Israel is as gay-friendly as Tel Aviv is, and I'm sure that the tourism industry, when it tries to market this to other countries, it puts a focus on the pluses of Tel Aviv specifically. I'm kind of interested in what kind of stuff do you push when you're trying to attract gay tourists here to Israel? What are the main strong points of your campaign, for example, that you can?
Well, first of all, gay tourists, as you know, contribute a lot to Israel economy. So we try our best to bring them, and a lot of them. So Tel Aviv is the main point. Yeah, we can't deny it. But also our delegation will go to Jerusalem on their last day over here. Yes, they'll go to all the old cities, must have, you know. They will go there. They are interested to go there and waiting to see the old city, the market. But also they will go at the end of the night to a gay-friendly bar in Jerusalem. There have been a gay parade in Jerusalem. Sorry?
There's about 1.5.
I think there's more than that. Maybe they're not, you know, up there.
No, I know.
There, like in Tel Aviv, but
very true. And it's an interesting point because I lived in Jerusalem for 1.5 years, and there is a very vibrant, very, I would say, you know, proud, you know, it's such a very proud gay community there, which is, you know, at the front battle of, they have a parade as well, but it's more of a show just to say that we also have a right to be here. While in Tel Aviv, it's like an international party of, you know, it doesn't matter what you are. I'm heterosexual. I love the gay pride parade. It's fun. You know, it's fun.
Are you going to be there on Friday?
Of course. Okay. With my kids. But Eitan Schwartz of the the Tel Aviv municipality, who are the people actually directly responsible. Sadly, we can't see you because some technical issues, but you're with us on the phone. This is, you know, just touching on the annual Gay Pride Parade. It's actually one of the biggest attractions of tourists to Tel Aviv annually, isn't it? It's a powerhouse.
It is. Yes, it is. Good morning. We estimate about 130,000 people come specifically to attend gay-related events in the city. So that's about 10% of our overall annual international crowd. So that's obviously a very high number and a very high figure. And considering the fact that this crowd tends to spend much more money than your average tourist in Tel Aviv, it's a wonderful blessing for our tourism industry and everybody who gives services to the tourism industry.
And in that respect, what is expected this year that is, you know, it's actually a full month, but is there something special expected in this year's parade or in this year's festivities?
Every year, the parade is the accumulation of, as you said, a month of activities. We have a gay film festival. We have a very big conference today discussing the various progress and trends that are happening around the world. And in Israel, we have Conchita from the Eurovision contest as our main guest of honor. But as you said, the Pride Parade is the one thing that kind of like brings together everybody. And I have to say that besides the commercial value and the tourism value, we think that Pride Month in Tel Aviv has a value in terms of the essence and moral, I think, stature that it represents. This city is a city of democracy. This city is a city of pluralism. This city is a city of tolerance. This is a city that embraces every segment and group in the Israeli population, and I think that's the main point, the fact that anyone can feel free in the city of Tel Aviv, Yafo, including a large LGBT community. For us, that's the main essence of what we're doing this month.
Eitan Schwartz, I'm going to let your beautiful words there, those beautiful words resonate right now. Thank you so much for joining us. Sharon, you are here, you're locked in studio because we are moving to the breaking news of the day, the most important segment ever. And that would be the man, the purple bow tie, the handkerchief, I don't even know how to refer to that. That is Ami Kaufman and the spiral viral that is the web review.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to start with something that I'm pretty sure this would not happen on the I-24 morning edition. We are professionals, our staff is professional.
Yes.
But Good Morning America, on the other hand, this is a group of clowns, apparently, because let's look at this tweet that they put up on Monday morning. This is a tweet of, you know, they want to say, you know, Mondays are sometimes kind of rough. It's the beginning of the week. Their tweet is, retweet this if this was you this morning. And they show a picture of little Simba. This is from The Lion King.
Yes, I know The Lion
cuddling
King.
up against the corpse of his dead father.
Oh my
lion.
God!
Now you know what? I sometimes feel like this. You know, every Monday morning.
It's
I
the
sometimes
circle of life. No.
You know, when I have a bad Monday, I sometimes feel like I want to cuddle up against my dead father's cold corpse. So they really caught, they really caught me there. That was nice with the Good Morning
Oh my
America.
God, that made me feel so much better about this morning right now.
Yeah, really?
Because I know the folks who would put that up there.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know that if you work for Good Morning America, which is owned by Disney, after 10 years, okay, you get a little plaque with Mickey Mouse on it that says, "Thank you for 10 magical years."
After 10 years? You have to wait 10 years for that?
You have to wait. I have that plaque.
You have?
After 20 years, you get a
You have to show me
Tinkerbell pen.
that. That's amazing. Oh my God.
Yes. Okay.
Kind of sad. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. BuzzFeed has a great little item up, and you should actually go to the site and take a look at it. It shows what's happened to very famous websites over the years when it comes to design. We already put this. This is Amazon in 1995.
Right. Okay.
Okay, that was Facebook.
That goes really fast.
That was really fast. This is the first Facebook in 2004.
Well, that was
That was 2004.
I would never click into this.
Let's see the next one. I hope it's coming up.
Yeah.
It should be coming. This is Google. This is what it looks like now. This is what Google looks like now. But in
It's like a winning design because
in 1998. Let's see what it looked like.
What did it look like in 1998?
That's what Google looked like in 1998.
Yeah, Google
I think we have
beta.
some more. I think I might have one from Twitter, maybe.
Twitter.
No, this is Twitter now. This is
Twitter
what it looks
now,
like. Pretty slick.
okay.
Certainly makes me want to tweet. Very inviting. This is Twitter. Oh my God, that's like Twitter in 2006.
And you know what the color of that? That's kind of the color of the vomit in The Exorcist.
It looks like snot, doesn't it?
It looks like snot.
It looks like snot.
This is what your favorite website used to look like. How did that ever catch on?
What's nice on the BuzzFeed website, you can actually go there. There's like this slider, the interactive kind of slider, so you kind of slide.
Like you go backwards.
So, you should go there, and it's really.
I shall.
I did that like for about an hour last night, and just slid stuff. And sorry.
Really? Yeah, sorry. That's
I
so
might have
sad.
exaggerated with that.
No,
okay.
yeah.
A few weeks ago,
Kaufman, the man with no life. Yes.
A few weeks ago, I showed you a very popular Instagram account by a famous Russian photographer called Murad Osman. He takes his girlfriend all over the world. He takes the exact same picture pretty much all the time.
Yes,
with his hand. And the hand. Oh, okay. They already showed it. They got married. And he's doing the same thing. He and his girlfriend got married, and this is the same thing. He puts his hand out. Really gorgeous pictures from the wedding.
Wow. Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
And she's taking.
And and this is the first time that we see their faces too. They're pretty a little far away here, but handsome-looking couple.
But beyond handsome, and I have to say that I hate them. I'll tell. Wow.
Look at that dress, though.
I really hate them.
The dress is really nice.
No, I hate that. Don't you hate them, Sean? Come on. Look at that. They have a fairy tale lifestyle. Beautiful. Look at that.
Those are the original pictures.
How much money do they have? They go everywhere around the world. She's like gorgeous. She has a waistline. He's a great photographer with a very big hand. Very huge hand.
Yeah.
Nobody is getting my reference.
He's well endowed.
Okay. He's well endowed. He's got a big hand. Okay. And look at them. They're getting married in some fairy tale. Yeah, I hate them.
Do photographers make that much money? They could just travel around the world?
No, that's the thing. He's probably like born with a silver spoon in his mouth or something. And photographers make no money. Okay, make no money.
They know money. Yeah.
Maybe he invented it. Who knows? Yeah. Okay. And
okay, this guy, this video is really going viral. It's a guy who it took him 3 months to make this video. He danced in 100 different places. But what's kind of mesmerizing about it, it's not that he's a great dancer or anything, but he did it. The editing is seamless, and the moves are not interrupted at all, which makes it kind of a bit hypnotizing, as the headline says. Let's take a few seconds.
Let's take a look.
At it.
Honey, it's a straight cut.
I think
it's straight cut.
Invite him to dance
we
in
have
Israel.
to invite him.
Wait a minute, I don't know that TV term. What does that mean?
No, I'm looking at this. First of all, it's like a TV term. I'm married to an editor.
Yeah.
But it's a straight cut. It's a straight cut with slight. It's fine. It looks phenomenal.
It does,
looks
doesn't it?
amazing. Amazing.
But what does a straight cut mean? I don't know what that means.
It's just because sometimes at a certain point that there are straight cuts, and then there's also the dissolve of the background.
You see?
But amazing.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. And tomorrow you will be seeing Ami Kaufman doing the exact same dance.
No.
Here in studio. Coming up next. Stay with us. It's something I don't know about. It's magic. And I have no idea what will be done to me. Okay. First, the news. I-24 News Morning Edition on this June 10th, 2015, where we have some good news as well as the Wizard of Oz.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, you're not the Wizard of Oz, but still, good morning, good morning. Israeli magician Cagliostro.
How do you spell it, Cagliostro?
No, God, that's so shallow of me, I know. Cagliostro. Yeah, I'm saying it right?
Yes.
Okay. Israeli magician Cagliostro stood in front of a crowd of more than 1,500 children from every ethnic and religious community in the city of Haifa, including Jews, Muslim, Christians, Baha'is, and Druze. That in itself is magic. To break a record for the world's largest ever magic lesson. We are joined in studio by the master magician Cagliostro. It's wonderful to have you with us.
You say peace.
Peace, peace just rose. Avri is with me in studio. There's peace. There's peace in the Middle East. High five.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah. Woo.
Why didn't you come earlier? I don't understand.
Where have you been for 20 years?
And more.
Can you explain to me what this trick was?
I can show it to you.
You can show it. Do we also have something to show? I think actually we have a clip. We have a short clip of what you did there. We'll set the scene for this, and then we'll break it down. Let's have a look.
האם עלה לכם הקלף של השלום? האם הבנתם את הכסף? יש לנו
That sign said it's in our hands. Peace, salam, shalom.
It's in our hands. I believe it.
Many of us used to as well. I'm a sarcastic old woman, and I've lost my hope. So bring it back to me again. You stood there in front of all these children of faiths and denominations and whatnot, and you did what? Show me. Okay.
Okay. If you want to start the peace process, it starts between people. Okay.
It does.
So I have here 8 cards. Each one of them have a word in Hebrew and Arabic that display the conflict and what you have to cross through. Honor, achva, how you say achva, loyalty.
Achva is like it's friendship.
Friendship, but it's more like
than
brotherhood.
Friendship. Yeah.
Something between friendship and brotherhood.
Hope. Yeah.
Together, dialogue.
Things one has to cross to reach that elusive peace.
So please pick up any word that you want to start your peace process with.
Yeah.
Don't show it to me. Just take it.
Just take it. Just take it.
No, look. What do you want to take?
I want to take. Where was dialogue?
No, don't.
I don't. Sorry,
I'm a magician.
Sorry.
Again. Pick up a card, any card, any word.
Any card. Move along.
Take it. Maybe you show it to the camera, please.
Don't look away.
Okay.
Look away. I'm showing it to the camera.
Okay, now please put it back wherever you want. Here inside the deck.
Inside that thingy. Okay.
Now I can shuffle it. You remember your what?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in Hebrew you say Aleh Shalom, and in Arabic it's Ta'al Salam.
And in English it's rise peace.
Rise peace. So please do like the magician.
Okay, right.
Rise peace. Yes.
Please rise peace.
Yes. Okay. Which word did you choose?
I chose friendship.
Sovlanut. It's not.
Sorry,
it's how you translate?
Patience. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is
tolerance.
Tolerance. Thank you. Tolerance. I chose tolerance.
This is your card?
Yes, this is my card.
Okay.
How'd you do that?
This is come to the next Guinness record and I'll show it to you.
Anyway, now all the kids
did it.
Yeah.
Each one of them pick up
a different
word, and it's raised. And then together we did it with the word peace, because this is what we're trying to do. And I want to say something. I was the chief army magician at the 80s. Yes, I was.
Wait, stop. Yeah, exactly. No, not you. Stop the chief army magician?
Yes, there are still army magicians until these days. When I was 18, it was 1980.
What does boot camp look like?
But,
yeah.
What I did, I went all around the country and met the soldiers and make them happy. And then they asked me to bring the peace. It was 30 years ago.
30 years ago. That's how long we've been waiting.
I'm still practicing, and one day maybe it will come. And I really believe that when you take people and kids, and there were kids, they were 10, 11 years old,
right.
And we spent together a day, one day, and it was a very happy day. And they learned the magic trick, and every one of them will show it to 30, 50 people. That means 100,000 people. It's a beginning.
It's a beginning. And the trick itself is basically realizing what, each kid picked out of the cards, right? As the road to peace, and you write in it, and you broke the Guinness World Record.
Yes.
Okay. And which is a huge thing. But above all, I think you proved
that it's possible.
That it's possible.
Between people.
Yeah. Not adults. Can you take this act to the Israeli parliament?
I think the vanishing part will be more popular.
Will be more popular
yes.
in that respect.
Yes.
How did you come about with the idea of just doing it with children? And
I want to break. I had the Guinness record with 660 kids, and then an English magician took it from me with 1,023. So, yes,
yeah,
exactly. I'm Israeli.
Yeah.
And,
he probably didn't bring peace.
Yes, no, it was just
politeness
and tea.
Vanishing handkerchief or something.
Okay.
And then I met these great people from Beta Geffen in Haifa that they are trying to do peace in the last 20 years. And the idea came, and we did it.
And when you saw that, when all the kids, the Muslims, Jews,
together,
Christians, Baha'is together, in the audience, did you feel also that, because I think what we're forgetting, the children are still...
believers.
Are believers, exactly. The children have faith. And that we at, past the age of, I think, 25, which is how old I am, we tend to lose that faith. And that's amazing. And in Haifa, you are, though, as the former chief army magician, are you planning to take this? You're not allowed to do this for soldiers, are you?
Why not? No, you can't do politics, but it is not a politics.
It's not a politics.
It's between people. It's regular trick between people.
It's amazing. I have one card trick. If you give me a card, I'll show you. Give me one card. Okay. I picked together. Okay, this is a trick. Are you looking? Are you looking? I think this works. I'm going to lick this.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Together.
Oh my God.
I know.
That's a lovely trick.
Nice.
Isn't that
yes.
No hands. No hands.
Very nice one.
Exactly. I want to thank you, Cagliostro, because this was it was one of the most amazing moments in this, in the studio. And if this is possible, and your trick is possible, so
everything.
so everything is possible, so peace is possible. Okay, Avri, I'm not going to move this card to your forehead, but I'm locking you in studio because we're moving to the culture segment.
Yeah, I don't have something as amazing as peace.
You don't,
but
okay.
I was just wondering, is the chief army magician under the rabbinic part of the army? Where
exactly.
does it? Can you marry people?
The education one.
Yes,
it's the education one. I think that many people here, and maybe young children who are watching, or you this, if you're looking for what to do in the Israeli military.
Yeah, I feel cheated. I feel cheated now. I did not know that was a possibility. But we're moving to
culture.
We're moving to culture. As you know, I have a special fondness for science fiction films, and this week we got our first glimpse of the film The Martian, starring Matt Damon, directed.
Damon? Okay.
You don't like Matt Damon?
I don't know. He's kind of, he looks a little bit like a latke. That's a potato pancake. I
like Matt Damon. This film is directed by Ridley Scott, based on a best-selling film. Let's watch a moment from the trailer.
A moment from it. Let's take a look.
Let's do the math. I gotta figure out how to grow 4 years worth of food here on a planet where nothing grows. But if I can't figure out a way to make contact with NASA, none of this matters anyway.
Houston, be advised. We've got a video message. It's directed to the whole crew. Play it.
Okay. Okay, The Martian. What is that about?
Yeah,
clearly a Martian.
It's not about an actual Martian. It's a science fiction film, but it's not about like aliens and wars. It's about something that could happen. It's about an astronaut that gets stranded on Mars because there's a storm and the crew has to evacuate, and he doesn't do it in time, and everybody thinks he dies, and he figures out a way to sort of survive in that encampment in Mars and send a message to Earth, and then it's about like sending people to save him.
Why do you like this story so much? Well, you're a science.
I'm a science. Well, look, people have been comparing it a little bit to Interstellar last year, but I think that's not a very apt comparison. You know, Interstellar brought back sort of space travel. People loved it very much. It was sort of an epic sci-fi in the vein of 2001. But to me, this brings to mind Apollo 13, 1995's Ron Howard movie, which was a true life story. It was a true life story. This isn't a true life story. It is a true life story about a crew that was
get stranded outside of the moon, blah blah blah.
Yeah. They kind of missed their moon landing. They have problems. They have to find resourcefulness to come back. And this is that story only sort of in the near future, but it's all sort of grounded in science. We've been seeing a resurgence in films about space exploration, you know, because NASA's budget has been cut drastically.
It's like PR. Listen, I'll take this every day over the massive amount of zombie movies that we're getting. Right?
Oh yeah. It sounds very interesting.
What else?
Okay.
Yes.
Have you heard of film director Uwe Boll?
Uwe Boll?
Uwe Boll.
Is he German?
He's a German director working in America mostly.
Okay.
He's responsible of such masterpieces as Rampage, Alone in the Dark.
I have a feeling Harvey's being sarcastic.
I am being
Rampage
sarcastic.
3.
He's trying to raise funds for Rampage 3. He hasn't been successful, and then he released this lovely video on YouTube, which you have a bit of.
Okay, let's take a look and see what what was it?
Basically, my message is fuck yourself, because that is so fucking absurd. What retarded amateur idiots collecting money on that absurd websites, you know? We get approached by people like Kickstarter, do it, and you have hundreds, thousands of people contacting you to make a fast dime.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna work.
Okay.
I have to say, if I were an American, Kalioster, I'm glad you're still with us. If I were an American listening to this man with the heavy accent that is reminiscent of every Nazi ever played on American movies.
So this is a crazy guy. This is a crazy guy. But he directed a lot of movies, very low budget, bad movies. But he takes himself very seriously. This man has a doctorate in literature from a German university, for real.
Oh my God!
He directed such wonderful movies as Blood Rain, Postal,
classics.
Again,
really
classics. But he made more than 30 movies, you know, in the last few decades, and he's been trying to raise money for this.
Has this worked? Has he been raising money?
No. This movie, as of yesterday, got about $30,000 out of its $55,000 goal, so it's not going to be funded.
But 30.
He still raised 30,000.
That got 30,000. Hello America, I would like to make a movie.
No, that was after. No.
Okay.
You know, this guy is not new to shenanigans. In 2005, after getting like horrendous reviews for years, he offered to box his critics. Only 4 bloggers showed up. It wasn't very successful. It was in an event called Raging Ball.
Only the Germans.
And in the end of this video, the guy says, I wanted to do it for you. I wanted to make an important movie. I have enough money to golf all my life, for the rest of my life. Surprising he did not make the money, but Uwe Boll, look it up. It's
Uwe Boll. Uwe Boll is, first of all, one needs to meet his parents, because who names a kid Uwe Boll?
Uwe, it's like a name. It's a German name.
And one last one, though. What else?
Well, last week we saw Sense8 from the Wachowskis.
Yes.
A new show on Netflix, along with Michael Straczynski, another sci-fi guy who wrote Babylon 5, if you remember that old. You want to watch a bit of Sense8? Let's watch a bit of Sense8.
Really quickly.
Few know what it means to be reborn, a Sense8.
A what?
But that's just the beginning.
I can feel you. But you're not really here, are you?
You are no longer just you.
It's a show about 8 people that start sensing and seeing what each other see.
And of course, it's the guy from Lost.
There's the guy from Lost.
Something.
They do some interesting things, but it seems to be a failure in the end. It has been getting not so good reviews. I haven't finished watching it, so I don't want to pass judgment. I love the Wachowskis usually.
I love the Wachowskis. Another tidbit, did you know that one of the Wachowskis is a transgender?
Yes, I do. And they play with that in this movie. There's a transgendered character in the show, but there's too much like speech making, too many long scenes with just two characters talking.
Yeah, they drag it out too long. It's not, the Matrix days are over.
I'll pass judgment after I watch it, and I'll update you.
As you should. But Avri, that was amazing because I love having you here, and we have Maestro Cagliostro, exactly, handing us the cards of peace.
Yeah, the cards of peace.
No, it's a magic kit. 4 card tricks.
4 card
with
tricks.
With the instructions inside.
Amen.
Yeah. All about peace.
God.
It's all about peace.
For me, it would be great. I have children. You have a girlfriend. So try that on her. Do not forget. Do not forget to check us out tomorrow. I-24 News Morning Edition. Tune in because we have things like this. I-24 News. Stay with us now. The news.